Greetings, fellow primates. Let me tell you a story. When I was a kid, viral concepts like skip the toilet or TikTok brain rot didn't really exist. Instead, my generation turned to other forms of media for entertainment. I specifically remember how the girls wouldn't stop talking about the latest Wings Club episodes. You know, that show where a bunch of winged girls with way too much free time decide to take on every corporate villain they can find. Meanwhile, the boys were all about that Mortal Kombat, especially that one move where Kitana kisses her opponent and boom, they explode. That scene alone caused an entire generation of children to develop an irrational fear of women. Some never fully recovered, myself included. But I wasn't really into Wings Club or Mortal Kombat. My after school routine was a little different. I'd grab the family laptop, hop on Newgrounds, and watch Madness Combat religiously. There was just something about those grey figures getting obliterated in the most over-the-top ways that brought me immense joy. And yes, I haven't even finished primary school yet, but the gore, loved it. Unfortunately, I was the only kid who watched it, so I decided to change that. I started pretending I was the child of a divine being, which, unexpectedly, worked a little too well. Before I knew it, my classmates either feared or respected me, and with that influence I introduced a new trend, madness combat. However, the godchild act didn't age well. As I got older, people started making fun of me for it, and eventually I switched schools. But hey, revenge is best served cold. Years later, Madness Project Nexus dropped. And no, I'm not talking about the old Newgrounds browser game, which we won't get into, because frankly, I don't want to be bombarded with Temu ads. I'm talking about the full-fledged game, based on the original Madness Combat series, created by Giving Tree. For those unfamiliar, Madness Combat is basically the story of Hank, an absolute maniac who fights, and I mean fights, anything that crosses his path. That includes grunts, super grunts, an immortal clown, and even Jesus Christ himself. Hank has a confirmed body count of over 700 unfortunate souls.
What's your body count? Whatever you think it is.
841. How much? 841.
Okay, what are you thinking it is? What do you think I'm asking?
How many people I killed?
Now, if you just said, "Hey, that's the guy from Friday Night Funkin'," please, I'm going to kindly suggest you to take a break from the internet. Permanently. Anyway, Madness Project Nexus carries the same chaotic energy as the original series. It's a beat 'em up game, in my opinion, the best one. The combat is super satisfying, the sound design is phenomenal, the gore is beautifully over the top, and most importantly, there's no shortage of enemies to absolutely wreck. The game takes place in the fictional world of Nevada, where economic turmoil has caused society to collapse, leaving behind only gamblers, addicts, and some pretty unhinged characters. When you start the game, instead of the typical new game or continue buttons we're used to, Madness Project Nexus does things a little differently. Starting from the bottom, we have the training course. Now, if you're like me and usually skip tutorials because you can't stand them, you'd probably pass on it like I did. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to play it, for the very first time, despite my over 300 hours in this game. The tutorial seems to take place around the events of Madness Combat 4. We can tell because our protagonist, Hank, has bandages on his head and torso from a previous battle. Plus, if you look at the top of the screen, you'll see Hank J. Wimbledon, another subtle note that not everyone catches. The tutorial teaches us moves like heavy attack and charge attack, though to be honest, I rarely use them. We're also introduced to our first enemies, standard grunts and golems. Unlike the smaller grunts, golems need to be hit 5 times to trigger a dizzy effect, which lets you perform a takedown. As we clear out the room and move forward, we run into our old friend, Tricky the Clown, who we, of course, greet by tossing a fire extinguisher his way. The game also has a counter mechanic. If an enemy flashes red, you can right click at the last second to counter them. Fun fact, when the game first launched, you could even counter golems, but sadly that got patched out. Once we get our first firearm, you might notice a green shape appear. That's the weapon's sweet spot. If you land a shot while your enemy is inside that zone, you'll not only score a critical hit, but also bypass their attack bar. Speaking of which, the attack bar is basically a dodge mechanic that helps you avoid bullets, super useful when you're outnumbered 1 to 30. The game also features grenades. Are they useful? Absolutely. Do I use them? No. At the end of the tutorial we face off against the sheriff and take him out. But right after we get taken out by a familiar antagonist. If you're wondering, no, you can't beat him. At least not yet. After experiencing the challenges of playing the tutorial, we can finally dive into story mode. Let's ignore the playing ground and arena for now. As we get into story mode, a cutscene plays, showing a grunt being squashed by a red-eyed cyclops. This red-eyed cyclops is Phobos, who we know ruled over Nexus City 15 years ago with an iron fist before Jesus took him down. In case you're wondering, the browser game I chose not to play is the source for all of this. But don't worry, this game brings in additional lore that ties back to the previous title. The cutscene slowly fades, revealing what's left of Nevada. If you're wondering why the sky is red, it's because Hank literally killed the sun. As the cutscene continues, we see 3 individuals rummaging through trash, only to be rudely interrupted by multiple high-speed trucks. On one of those trucks are Hank and his 2 sidekicks, Sanford and Demos, being pursued by the agency, who are after Hank J. Wimbledon. Hank, being Hank, obliterates every agent that dares approach his truck. Unfortunately, the same group of individuals we saw earlier, searching through trash, decide to take revenge by misdirecting a boulder straight into the high-speed truck, simulating a Russian dashcam car crash. This causes Demos, one of Hank's companions, to break several ribs. By the way, if you're wondering about the doors in the background, it's because I'm playing the release beta version of the game, which is the only one that has a Steam workshop, allowing me to install mods, so just ignore them. Leaving the injured Demos behind, we are introduced to a new enemy called a bandit. This particular bandit is threatening to harm his friend's children because they won't share the garbage he found. This gives us a clear idea of the state Nevada is in. While we don't know yet if Nexus City still stands, we can see that in the outskirts, things have become so desperate that people have resorted to eating literal garbage to survive. However, Hank doesn't care about their situation. He sees them as obstacles, and to him that's a death sentence. After defeating the bandits, we reach a sign, where Hank comments that a popular fast food restaurant run by Gil is probably Z2 by now, implying the city is overrun with zombies and likely inhospitable. As we continue, we encounter more bandits, with one of them declaring dibs on the bones of the truck driver, further showing just how desperate things have become. The worst part is that these people have accepted this as normal life. Eating garbage and fending off zombies has become a routine survival struggle. After dealing with the start bandits, we come across even more. One of them implies that he ate bullets, while his friend ate the garbage, even showing envy toward him.
Yo, I'm down bad, bro.
If you're curious, eating bullets can lead to lead poisoning, internal injuries, and peritonitis, which is a life-threatening condition caused by a hole in your gut wall. So, to be clear, don't eat bullets, kids. This entire area is filled with more bandits, and if we go further, one of them mentions how starving is better than being eaten by a zombie. This comment, alongside Hank's earlier remarks, suggests that Nexus City has become a wasteland, similar to Dying Light. Essentially, the bandits here are lucky they're just starving and scavenging, rather than being consumed by zombies. A little further we find an armory. As shown in the clip, one issue with the game is that it can be difficult to pick the weapon we want if they're stacked closely together, especially inside a locker. However, lockers generally contain useful weapons, both firearms and melee weapons. If you find firearms, they'll usually come with extra magazines, so you can reload and continue using them. After grabbing the gun from the armory and heading outside, we see a raised bridge. Nearby is a sign that kindly asks you not to shoot the console, because you could just ask nicely. But obviously, Hank would rather shoot than talk, so that's exactly what he does. Once we cross the bridge, Hank is ambushed, but the ambush is quickly dispelled. It's sad how these bandits are so starved that they are attacking unarmed men just to get some sustenance. Further on, Hank comments that the city is just past this bandit nest, implying that the only way forward is to eliminate all the bandits inside. This is pretty typical for him. At some point the agency will show up, using World War I style human wave tactics, and fail miserably at it. We also notice that the agency shoots down the starving and clearly distressed bandits, making them arguably more questionable than Hank. These guys will stop at nothing to destroy Hank, but that doesn't stop Hank from pushing forward. After defeating all the helpless bandits, we complete the first stage, which shows how much time we spent and the number of bodies we left behind. There's an achievement in this game, unlocked after you kill 53,594 people. While that number might seem huge, trust me, if you hit the 100-hour mark, you'll definitely unlock it. If you're like me and you pause the game frequently, you might have noticed Phobos making some funny comments. Honestly, it's probably one of the best features I've ever seen in a video game. I wish Hearts of Iron 4 had something like this. Once we get control of Hank, you might notice a building to the left. If you go inside and find the basement, you'll catch a glimpse of a mysterious figure quickly retreating after you spot him. At this point in the story, we have no idea who this person is. However, exploring the basement reveals drawings he made that depict different story events depending on your progression. Looking at it, we can see two figures stand next to a scratched out one. These figures represent Deimos and Sanford, with the third likely being Hank, since he arrived alongside them. Hank being scratched out is some solid foreshadowing for the ending, which I won't spoil just yet. Heading outside and slowly making his way toward the city, Hank is suddenly stopped in his tracks by a sniper, which is odd, considering the city is supposed to be swarming with Zeds. The only way to get past the sniper is to disable the power to the stoplights, effectively blinding them and allowing us to move forward. Conveniently, there's a power plant just to the left. Once inside, we start noticing remnants of civilization. Things like ATMs, computers, and Employee of the Month posters. These everyday objects, which we'd normally take for granted, are now reduced to scrap, or, if someone's desperate enough, maybe even food. Before heading to the control room, we can explore a bit and uncover some key pieces of lore. In one file, we read about an employee being replaced. What stands out is that the entire staff running the region's only power source was swapped out for a single guy. That decision came from Dr. Christoph, who, for those unfamiliar, is Jesus before becoming Jesus. His reason? He claimed he was embarking on a voyage to divergence. Mysterious stuff. We also learned that the person who got replaced was named B.G. Bossman. Another file raises even more questions. It explains that the power station used to distribute electricity across a large grid, but ever since Nexus City fell, its only purpose has been to keep bandits away. This kind of contradicts everything we thought and knew about Nexus City being overrun by the undead.
I was blind. But now I see.
Back to the mission, Hank reaches the door to the control room, only to find it locked. Since he's not exactly a hacker, he does what Hank does best. He smashes every piece of equipment until something gives in. Surprisingly, it works. But, of course, the path forward is blocked again. So Hank crawls through the vents and ends up in the living quarters, conveniently located next to the terminal. Naturally, he smashes that one too, though this time he just locks the door even tighter. Nearby we find another room where we meet Rich, the same guy featured on the Employee of the Month poster.
Employee of the month, huh? Anyway.
Turns out he's also the one who replaced Bossman and his team, as we learned earlier. Rich mentions he's been working here for 30 years and his replacement is 29 years overdue. Can we please appreciate the effort this man has done to keep Nexus City safe? Someone award this hero the Medal of Honor.
I hereby award you the title of Big Boss.
Hank, being Hank, avoids small talk and decides to completely shut the power down, effectively wiping out Richie's entire life's work. Moments later, the agency tries to ambush Hank again, thinking this time will be different. It's not. Hank absolutely wipes the floor with them. Again.
You can't keep getting away with it! You can't keep getting away with it!
He won't.
Shutting off the power blinds the sniper, removing the last obstacle standing between us and Nexus City. But just as we're about to move forward, we get shot at by the sheriff. Thankfully, Hank easily dodges the bullet. Turns out, the sheriff controls the gate that leads into Nexus City, which probably means he's running the entire operation inside. He even says, "I run the show," just to make that crystal clear. Before Hank can take him down along with his crew, a mag bandit suddenly shows up out of nowhere. He's clearly desperate, so much so that he calls Hank fast food. This kicks off the first boss battle in story mode. Luckily, it's not too hard to deal with. At first, newer players might be intimidated by how much health the mag has, but Hank can absolutely shred an enemy's health bar, or corpus as the game calls it, using certain weapons, such as a screwdriver, stake, a scalper, or broken melee weapons. Hank defeats the mag bandit without too much trouble. Right after the fight ends, Deimos and Sanford arrive on the scene. Unfortunately, the sheriff still refuses to let him through. But then, plot twist, the same mag bandit from earlier, drowned by the scent of burned tires from inside the city, gets back up. He throws himself at the wall, breaking it down completely. In doing so, he makes a path for the team, and goes out in the process. His sacrifice will be remembered. Instead of seeing the ruined version of the city, we're shown it in its full glory, from Christoph's perspective, before everything fell apart. He's on the hunt for the sheriff, and along the way, we get to see how normal things used to be. No infected, no chaos, no bandits. Just a functioning city, complete with riot guards keeping the peace. One of the guards even recognizes Christoph and greets him, which gives us a clear hint that Christoph is someone important and well known in Nexus City. When Christoph finally finds the sheriff, the two appear to be meeting in secret. Christoph tells him that as they move through the city, we see guards pointing weapons at civilians, with scientists trying to figure out who vandalized a propaganda poster of Phobos. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, Phobos ruled over Nexus City with an iron grip, and this scene confirms just how intense his control was. Something as small as defacing a poster could have serious consequences.
You may hand us over to the executioner.
Eventually, they reach the industrial sector, and we learn that Christoph wants the sheriff to secure the loyalty of the mercenaries and take control of the area. Christoph believes the industrial zone is self-sufficient, which makes it the ideal place to carry out the disturbing plans he has in mind. After this cutscene, we jump back to our protagonists as they breach the city and plan their next move. What's interesting here is that Hank seems to be taking the lead. He's the one calling the shots and giving orders to the others. We also learn what their mission is. They're here to destroy Project Nexus. The team splits up. Hank goes off to track down someone who can help them shut the project down, while Deimos and Sanford head toward the transit system to get it back online. To do that, they'll need the sheriff's security codes. This is when the game switches protagonists, and I've gotta say, I'm not exactly thrilled about it. Unlike Hank, Deimos and Sanford don't have the same speed or combat skills, so gameplay feels noticeably slower and honestly a bit less fun. Anyway, as they move through the city, we find out that some people have actually survived. Mostly mercenaries, like the ones we saw in the previous cutscene. And, surprise, they're not fans of us being here. Deimos and Sanford realize they can't make any progress while the sheriff's security system is still online. So, Deimos, being the tech guy of the group, suggests hacking it. Getting to the main terminal isn't going to be easy. The entire facility is crawling with mercs, and this time they actually had a proper lunch, so they're not messing around. Still, Sanford and Demos push forward. At one point you'll run into a foreman, warning the others about the two protagonists. Turns out the sheriff is expecting them, and they don't plan on keeping him waiting. The level isn't particularly difficult, and the lore is basically non-existent. But it does introduce us to friendly AI, which, honestly, is more broken than DeepSeek. Let's say you're playing as Sanford. In that case, Demos will be controlled by some of the most questionable AI you've ever seen. He won't pick up new weapons, won't heal himself, and will charge into enemies regardless of how outnumbered or outgunned he is. Some people say you should just play co-op, and they're right. Unfortunately, I don't have friends, so co-op is off the table for me.
I'm gonna beat that. I ain't get the out of me, little ugly.
Once you hack the main terminal, the stage is complete. Once the security system is disabled, we can move toward the Merc's headquarters. However, the door has been sealed off by Sheriff's goons, who were clearly expecting you. Luckily, Sanford has an idea. If life gives you locked doors, use explosives.
Bomb has been planted. The bomb is sticking down.
Unfortunately, the explosives Sanford packed were lost in the car crash, so the two decide to borrow some from the local boom factory. Before we dive into the stage, you might have noticed the game soundtrack is absolutely fire. The music was composed by Cheshire and Lochner. No disrespect to Cheshire, but Lochner really nailed it with these bangers. Just listen to that soundtrack.
Send reinforcements! Send everyone!
You might be wondering if the stage itself has any significance to the plot. My answer is simple. I honestly don't know. I was too focused on the music to really pay attention to what was happening in the game. In one room, we find the reports, spanning several decades, most of them detailing workplace accidents. Strangely, most of these accidents seem to be fatal. But here's the weird part. The victims of these fatal accidents somehow show up the next day perfectly fine, as if nothing ever happened. Why? How? It's still unclear. Either the medical technology in this world is so advanced that people can recover from literally anything, or they figured out how to clone people. Spoiler alert, it's the cloning. On their way to the ordnance, our characters are suddenly stopped by two mags, named Church and George. George is decked out in a piece of armor that says size matters, which, believe it or not, is actually important to the lore. From his gear we can gather that George is roughly the size of a reptile. Both enemies launch an attack, but don't panic. Their tactics aren't exactly brilliant. You can literally run in circles and you'll struggle to keep up. George charges at you like a tank, wielding only shock gloves, while Church attempts to snipe from a distance. A reasonable strategy here would be to focus on one while hoping your AI partner handles the other. Unfortunately, the AI isn't exactly reliable. It's a small miracle if it manages to stay alive for more than 12 seconds. And since our protagonist isn't Hank anymore, this boss fight ends up being more challenging than expected. After finally defeating the two and collecting the explosives, the stage is complete. With the explosives secured, we can finally breach the sheriff's fortress. Once inside, we overhear a clerk talking about a shipment headed to the commercial sector. From what he says, it's clear that Nexus City is still very much active, not just in the industrial zone, but in other sectors too. I mean, why else would mercenaries be sending shipments there? It's not like the infected can make use of that stuff. Naturally, the place is crawling with the sheriff's men. A bit further in, there's one guy taking cover behind some crates. And hey, did you know the game actually has cover mechanics? Neither did I, but if you're wondering whether they're useful, they really aren't. This game rewards movement. Standing still behind a barrel isn't going to get you through a level. Inside a hydraulic press room, we find a file with letters from Hofnar to the Matter and Energy Reclamation Company. What's interesting is that the spelling gets progressively worse. You can see Hofnar losing his grip. He's always been a tricky character, but here you can really see the descent into madness. The actual cause of this breakdown? Still unclear. After cutting down even more mercenaries, we finally reach the sheriff. And surprise, surprise, he's not exactly in the mood to cooperate. Problem is, he's on the other side of a platform with no direct way across. The only method to damage him? Drop 2 heavy crates on his head. Once you do that, he bolts, and Deimos and Sanford are forced to chase after him. This time, the only way to reach him is by using some good old-fashioned high-powered explosives. The same kind the CIA used during Operation Neptune Spear. One last gunner stands in your way, mistaking you for a hired gun from the employers. In case you didn't know, the employers are the shadowy folk who contacted Phobos to build Project Nexus. When the sheriff is finally cornered, he admits he's been working with Nexus Corp, supplying them with weapons. That clerk from earlier, he was prepping a delivery. In exchange, Nexus Corp promised to leave the industrial sector alone. We also get a hint that Project Nexus is more than just a cloning program, though the sheriff doesn't go into detail. The final fight against him is honestly a breeze. He's all alone, and you can take him out easily by hitting the sweet spot with any decent weapon. Once he's down, the stage is complete. In doing so, we get another flashback from Christoph's perspective. This time, however, we see Nexus City during the fall, as the city is slowly overrun by Zeds and Nexus agents struggle to hold their ground. Christoph, being the so-called nice guy, orders the mercs to lock themselves inside the industrial sector, the same mercs we just took out. Turns out his assumption was correct. The industrial sector was the best place to hide during the fall. But if he really wanted to help people, why doom them in the first place? Later on we run into Hofnar, who clearly regrets helping Christoph unleash chaos. This meeting happens right after the events of the Madness browser game, with Christoph now holding the Keystone Fragment, an artifact that grants godlike powers. We've seen it in action throughout the Madness Combat series, and now it's in Christoph's hands as he vanishes from Nexus City, in search of the Agents of the Madness. After witnessing the fall, we're snapped back to reality. This time, the sheriff, having no other choice, finally unlocks the transit system. Before he lets us go, he gives some parting advice. He confirms that Project Nexus runs way deeper than anyone thought, and warns our two protagonists to proceed with caution. He also gives us a heads up. The mercs are out for revenge. Can't really blame them, we did wipe out half their numbers. With that, we say goodbye to the sheriff and finally get access to the transit system, taking us to the residential sector. What's wild about this area is that there are still people living here. Sure, most of them are completely unhinged and probably see your organs as a 5-course meal, but hey, at least they're not Zeds. Our main objective here is to lower the bridge that leads to the mines, but to do that, we've got to fight our way through the inner city and locate the rooftop access bridges. The apartment building is covered in the ramblings of madmen, scribbles on the walls asking for power from a hot dog. In the next room there's even a message that says starved life. In case that wasn't obvious enough, these folks are clearly suffering from severe malnutrition. But honestly, that's nothing new in Nevada. Before they can move forward, though, our protagonists have to put on respirators. Why? Because the locals are so desperate for nutrients, they've started cooking rubber, hoping it tastes like steak.
Young man, kill yourself!
You might have also noticed that both Deimos and Sanford got a little upgrade. An additional corpus and some new armor if you look closely. A bit further in, we run into a bandit brute making his dinner, and by dinner I mean he's prepping a shoe. Sounds awful, sure, but hey, food fetishers dream about tasting some of that sweet, sweet rubber from mommy's delicious boot. And here's something to keep in mind. The big guys, they're the ones calling the shots. In today's world, leaders are usually known for their smarts and charisma. But in this messed up reality, people have started following whoever can hit the hardest. It's a wild reversal, considering that in real life, brain usually beats brawn when it comes to leadership. This stage also introduces shields. I hate shields. They're the go-to tool for cowards, and they're just plain annoying. The only real way to deal with a shielded enemy is to either flank them or use the good old middle mouse button to deliver a kick. The bandits here are way more organized than we expected. They've completely locked down the residential sector, and the only way forward is through the streets below. To get there, we'll need to cut through another block, but unlike the last one, this area is barricaded. Not too surprising, honestly, since Nexus City is still crawling with infected, and we're definitely about to run into some. To reach the streets, we have to pass through the sewers first, and this is where we get our first encounter with the infected, or Zeds as they're called. Unlike regular enemies, Zeds can only be taken down by targeting the head. Classic zombie rules. Body shots won't do the trick. They'll just get back up. Now's a good time to take a closer look at these things. Biology style. In Madness Project Nexus, Zeds are bioengineered zombies, essentially the result of failed cloning experiments. Since they can take way more damage than normal enemies, it's safe to assume they have got reinforced bones, and maybe even overgrown muscle tissue. That part's not too complicated, but what's really interesting is the brain stuff. Their movement is clumsy, sure, but calling them brain dead isn't totally accurate. Their behavior suggests they have a simplified nervous system, maybe something controlled by the brainstem that shuts down higher thinking, but keeps the basics running. They don't react to pain either, which could mean their pain response is either heavily suppressed or completely gone.
Pain is just mental. Get back up.
Also, you'll notice some Zeds carry weapons. Some Zeds were likely just regular grunts before turning, so maybe they remember that tools are useful. Problem is, their mental capacity is so reduced, they don't actually know how to use them anymore. It's like a half-formed instinct. The lazy explanation is simple. The devs just wanted them to look cool and didn't worry too much about the logic. The more biological theory is that their tool-using brain functions were overwritten to prioritize aggression. Another possibility is that their hands are just too messed up to actually use anything. Maybe they've got fused joints, missing fingers, or claw-like growths instead of hands. Anyway, moving on. Once we make it to the streets, we come across these alarm poles, and if you walk too close, they go off and attract every nearby Zed. This suggests the infected rely more on sound than sight, though that's still up for debate. Eventually, we reach Gil's restaurant, and to our surprise, Gil isn't Zed food. He is a Zed. But here's the weird part. He's still acting like a chef, flipping burgers like nothing ever happened. Even crazier, he doesn't immediately attack you like all the others. I've got two theories about that. First, muscle memory. Zeds aren't completely blank slates. Some might retain fragments of their former selves, especially habits they did over and over. Gil was probably making burgers for years, His brain might be half gone, but the routine stuck. So now he's just stuck on autopilot, endlessly trying to finish his shift. Second theory, maybe Gil didn't fully transform. Maybe he only got partially infected. So his body is mutated, but his mind isn't totally gone yet. Like a slow burn infection where the body degrades before the mind does. One last mystery. How is Gil even able to speak after turning? It's hard to say. Maybe the mutation didn't hit the parts of the brain responsible for speech. Or maybe talking, like flipping burgers, is just another behavior running on autopilot. His prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handles logic and language, might still be hanging on, at least partially. There's no clear answer, especially since we don't fully understand how the infection works. So take these theories with a grain of salt. Unfortunately, as lovable as Gil is, he's blocking our path. And when something's in your way, you have to deal with it. One issue I have about this boss fight, his charge attack is fast. The guy runs like your dad finding out your mom's expecting, which is not easy to dodge. Once Gil's down, we can move on to the next stage. Leaving all that aside, it's time for a change of scenery. From the heights of apartment complexes, we head down into the sewers, which eventually will lead us to the mining sector. And since this is Mania's project Nexus, you already know there are about 50 enemies standing in your way. But at this point in the game, I'm sure the boys are used to it. After all, what's a few desperate survivors compared to you? Survivors who unfortunately won't be making it out, thanks to someone drawing the attention of every Z within a 50-mile radius.
You did that! You! For shame!
But hey, you can rescue them by giving them a quick and merciful end. Aren't you just the definition of chivalry? Thanks to our protagonist's poor decision making, we now have to deal with both Zeds and bandits. Pack those shotguns, you're gonna need them. A couple of skirmishes later, and we meet the swamp Zeds. Unlike the usual ones, these freaks spit toxic sludge at you. No surprise, considering they hang out in Nexus City's sewer system. The science behind it is still up for debate, but realistically, they've probably adapted to survive and weaponized that environment. Their cells likely extract and concentrate all the nasty compounds from the sludge. Somewhere in their sinus cavity or throat, they've developed a fleshy gland or storage pouch, filled with corrosive biofluid. It's not just snot, it's a mix of enzymes, necrotic gunk, and microbial spores. When they spit, it probably hits like a blend of acid, glue, and rot. It burns, slows you down, and wrecks your body's ability to recover. And yeah, it probably smells, like rotten eggs and mold. Maybe it even steams on impact. Oh, and if you get any in your mouth, instant infection, enjoy your last moments. Fight your way through and you're rewarded with a boss fight, a very familiar one. Turns out the mag bandit Hank mopped the floor with is still alive and kicking. Literally. Most boss fights in this game can be easily defeated by simply shooting until they drop, while occasionally dodging. This one's no different. Even if the mag bandit helped you earlier, he's still in the way. And you know what that means? Handle it.
Fire! Fire now!
After the boss fight, you'll be greeted by more Zeds, and once you get through them, it's time for another boss fight. This time, you're up against Church and George. You fought them before, but now, thanks to Nexus Core, they've got upgrades, just like Sanford and Demo. Like last time, Church is charging at you full speed, while George is doing his best to hit anything with his brand new flamethrower. And yes, he has a shield now. I hate shields. I actually struggled with this fight. Might have been because I was recording at 2 AM with 4 Big Macs and half a gallon of Coke in my system, or maybe it was just George and his stupid shield. As stated earlier, I hate shields. Once we put these two to bed, we finally descend into the mining sector. And just like that, the stage is complete. And with that, another piece of Christoph's past comes to light. Once again, we get a glimpse of Nexus City, during its peaceful days, complete with fast food joints for the locals. Seems like a decent place to live, on the surface, but don't let the calm tone fool you. Beneath the clean streets and neon signs, there was still heavy censorship, and an oppressive regime, where even something as harmless as loitering could get you in trouble. Basically, living in Nexus City was like living in Nazi Germany. It was not exactly a free society. After being fired by Phobos, Christoph decides he's had enough and sets out to bring chaos to the world. With Hofnar's help, he starts making his move. Along the way, we encounter a guard, which we have to distract using a rock. It's a classic stealth move, but here the devs poke fun at how overused it is in other games. The agent's reaction to the rock is purposely overreacted, and I love it. This interaction is funny. After sneaking past, we come across scientists experimenting on mags, who are freakish, mutated creatures that are supposedly meant to help in daily life. Honestly, they look more like horror movie rejects than helpers. The flashback ends right where the browser game begins, with Christoph setting off a chain of events that doom the city, and maybe all of Nevada. But hey, it's all in the name of the so-called greater good. A greater good that just so happens to bring famine, massacres, zombie outbreaks, and statewide insanity. Thankfully, we're finally back with Hank, as he searches for Hofnar. To track him down, Hank has to dig through Christoph's old emails, scattered around the commercial district. One of them talks about Phobos, repurposing the Sleepwalker program to train a personal army, supposedly to seize control of the city. Which begs the question, why take over a city that already obeys your every command? Chances are Christoph was just capping to convince Hofnar to join his cause. In that same email, Christoph refers to the sheriff, who was supposed to be an ally, as that mattress salesman. Now yes, the sheriff did sell mattresses before everything fell apart, but calling him that instead of even using his name, that's some pretty disrespect right there.
You disrespect me. You disrespect my family.
Another email has Christoph criticizing Phobos for not shutting down Plan Z, a plan he himself used to destroy Nexus City. And then in the final email, he's actually happy that Phobos might shut down Plan Z in exchange for the Sleepwalker program. Of course, that never happened. Phobos was so power-hungry, he kept pushing every project forward, no matter how ethically wrong or dangerously unstable it was. What I really like about this part of the game is how weirdly quiet it is. The streets are empty, no enemies, no bodies, just the banger soundtrack. And while it's probably because the Zeds already wiped out everything that breeded in the commercial district before moving on to the residential zone, let's not ruin the mood. To get to Hofnar, we'll have to make our way through the Nexus Asylum, where his office is. It's pretty ironic that the guy who's completely lost his mind used to work at a mental institution, an asylum that houses a wide variety of patients, each one different, but all so far gone they mistake flies for angels. How these people survived 15 years is beyond me. Turns out Nexus City has no shortage of unstable individuals. In fact, you're going to get swarmed in this stage more often than you like. And since this is an asylum, it only makes sense to measure Hank's mental stability. The result says he's 12% below the safety threshold. Now, I'm no mental health professional, but I've read some Reddit threads where people claim Hank has PTSD. Personally, I don't believe it. Hank doesn't get PTSD, he gives PTSD.
No rules, no boundaries. He doesn't flinch at torture, human trafficking, or genocide. He's not loyal to a flag or a country or any set of ideals.
One thing that's been bothering me though is our earlier run-ins with mercs. They were just trying to survive, same with the folks in the residential sector, now currently being digested inside the Z. Sanford and Demos, under the banner of the greater good, have wiped out entire survivor communities. Hank, on the other hand, doesn't pretend to be doing the right thing. He knows he's not, and he doesn't care. He actually reminds me of Mad Max, a lone survivor who doesn't care who lives or dies, as long as the mission gets done and he walks away breathing. The difference being that Max eventually gives in to his emotions. Hank doesn't.
Yes, I will. Yes, I will. I'll remember. I promise you.
Anyway, back to the action. A couple fights later, we run into the orderlies. People who clearly share their patient's level of sanity. They seem to be running experiments on the mentally ill for reasons. They even try to sedate Hank and strap him to a bed. Clearly, they didn't read the danger poster with his face on it. If they had, they would have dropped to the floor and played dead. Remember the tutorial, when Christoph used cheats to insta-kill us? Good news, he's back. Bad news, his mod menu is paywalled now. Like the sheriff, Christoph isn't a huge threat. He'll try to shoot and stab you, but Hank is better with both guns and blades. Not even his halo can save him. Like a true coward, after a couple of bullets and a stab wound, he gives up. Turns out he thought Hank was here to absorb the project's power for himself.
Are you okay?
But once Hank reveals his true intentions, Christoph decides to help. Unfortunately. With Christoph tagging along, finding Hofnar is just a matter of dealing with whatever enemies stand in your way. Christoph thinks Hofnar is somewhere in the sleeper labs, where we encounter sleepwalkers. These guys are tricky. They need to be killed 3 times before they are actually down for good. And when they die, they explode. The only way to avoid that blast is to either pull off a combat takedown or blast their faces with a shotgun. These sleepwalkers were supposed to be Phobos' personal army, mass cloned. They're basically empty shells carrying the skills and memories of Subject 1v02P. The same character you play as in the arena mode of the Madness Project Nexus browser game. This part of the stage might hit some nostalgia buttons, especially since arena mode was actually better than the main game. After the fight, we find his personal lounge and read through his diary. He's happy, because after every fight, he comes back without any scars, believing the medics are healing him. But the truth is, he's just being cloned. Canonically, this guy has died 2,691 times. Talk about persistence. After that nostalgia trip, we meet Hofnar, also known as Tricky, because the guy is pretty messed up in the head, so calling him Tricky fits. Instead of cooperating, he puts us through an experiment designed to kill its participants. This fight is hands down one of the best in the whole game. The music is perfect, the enemies are plentiful and traps are everywhere. You'll have to dodge them while taking down foes. There are 3 rounds, each tougher than the last, and there's no healing or restocking between them. But hey, you're playing as Hank J. Wimbledon. Just saying. If you survive long enough, Nexus Core shows up to finish the job. But again, you're Hank J. Wimbledon. Just saying, Surprisingly, Tricky actually ends up joining the fight, on your side. Probably because he hates Nexus Core more than he does you. You don't get to switch characters and play as him. But why would you? Hank J. Wimberton is all you need. After taking down their soldiers, Tricky has a change of heart and decides to help Hank destroy Project Nexus. And that's where the stage ends. The commercial district is now overrun with both unstable individuals and Nexus agents. Hofnar revealed that Project Nexus can only be destroyed using the Divergence engine. So Hank, along with Christoph, who's not exactly pulling his weight, heads into a secret Nexus facility that's still active, even after the organization's collapse. But not for long. Soon, its operations will be permanently shut down due to a serious shortage of personnel. One thing that really stands out here is that Phobos' plan for a private army actually worked. Nexus agents are now deploying sleepwalkers to fight alongside them. And honestly, am I the only one who finds the idea completely absurd? These guys are trained by watching old footage of someone fighting, and we're supposed to believe that turns them into elite soldiers? In reality, real combat skills come from real experience, not watching replays like it's a game film. I mean, no one's gaining reflexes and endurance from sitting on the couch watching fight scenes. Now, this facility we're infiltrating is the same one Christoph broke into 15 years ago. Bonus detail, in the exact room where he once threw a rock to distract a guard, there's now a "Do not throw rocks" sign. This stage also introduces us to the unfinished mags, massive grotesque brutes who can take a ridiculous amount of punishment. After dealing with two of them, we encounter enemies using shields. I hate shields. After racking up around 80 eliminated agents, we finally reach our objective. Both keys are guarded by more unfinished mags, but Hank handles them quickly. Just when we think we're done, a heavily armored mag with glowing purple eyes show up. This is Project Gestalt. At this point, all we know is that Phobos is involved, but Christoph isn't ready to spill the full story. What we can gather is that Gestalt is terrifyingly powerful, powerful enough that even Christoph is afraid of it. Then, out of nowhere, the creature pulls a Batman on us and attacks us from behind the walls. Once again, our only real option is to run. After we escape, Christoph admits that Project Gestalt was Phobos' twisted attempt at achieving immortality, meaning this thing probably can't be taken down by normal means. It's relentless, and all we can do is keep slowing it down until we can move on to the next stage. With Gestalt out of the picture, another flashback begins. And if you've been paying attention up to this point, you know what that means. We're switching protagonists. In this flashback, we see Christoph being removed from Project Nexus by Phobos himself, who has discovered Christoph's plan to overthrow him. While that part isn't news to us, what is new is that Christoph doesn't just want to take Phobos down, he wants to take his place as director. We also get confirmation that Phobos has been hired by the employers, and that Project Gestalt is actually his attempt to ascend to something far beyond human. Christoph's role is then handed over to Crackpot, the founder of Plan Z. The flashback ends with Christoph teaming up with Hofnar to begin preparing for the fall of Nexus City. It's clear that if Christoph can't be in charge, then no one will be. He'd rather bring the whole system down than leave it in Phobos' hands. From here we continue ascent for the Andimos, as they make their way through the mining sector toward the Science Tower. Their path, however, is blocked by flooding, and since swimming mechanics were apparently too expensive, we're left with no choice but to take the scenic route. Like the surface, this area is crawling with Zeds and lunatics. But, unlike the ones above, these aren't just desperate survivors, they're full-on cultists. You'll even catch them praying to Zeds, probably hoping one turns into a cute zombie girl. Along the way, we spot weird black goo on the walls. It looks like the missing textures from Half-Life, but with a black and purple twist instead of pink and black. This stuff is called dissonant reality, and it's basically energy seeping in from the other place. Based on what we've learned so far, this energy is what drove Hofnar over the edge. The other place itself seems to be the Madness universe's version of an afterlife, and it's heavily implied that this cult's obsession with Zeds, who only care about mindless consumption, has been influenced by it. Because of the flood, we're constantly forced to reroute and activate various pumps to clear the way. During all this, we come across scriptures explaining that the cult doesn't just worship Zeds, they also revere to something called buoyancy, as in the whole sinking and floating physics concept. I'm not sure about the floating part, but judging by their mental state, these guys have definitely sunk to the bottom. Eventually, we reach the main pump room, where Church and George try to stop us, again. But honestly, it's the exact same boss fight, just with a different wall pitch, so I'm not gonna dwell on it. After defeating them and turning the final valve, the stage wraps up. Unfortunately, not all the water has been drained yet. There's still one more pressure valve in your way, located near the Science Tower subterranean foundation. In the briefing for the next stage, the developers confirmed that sex is canon in the Madness universe.
Yes! Oh my god! How do they make this more and more epic every time? How do they make this more and more epic every time?
Once the stage begins, you'll immediately notice dead bodies on the floor, with blood everywhere. It's unlikely they were killed by Zeds, otherwise they'd be Zeds themselves by now. So we can assume there's something down here even worse. That something turns out to be abominations. Think of them as mutated versions of the maniacs from the asylum. In this stage, you'll also come across emails from Crackpot, who instructs the mercs, apparently working under Director Phobos' orders, to continue a meshment program, even after Christoph ordered it shut down. At this point, it's clear the mercs were sent down here to collect dissonance, which drove a few of the employees completely insane. Speaking of insanity, these abominations seem to be afraid of bright light. I know I've made plenty of Dying Light references already, but I can't help comparing these guys to volatiles. Both are fast, aggressive, and share the same weakness to strong light. At one point, you'll need to cross some floating bridges, and this is where the AI's questionable behavior really shows. Your partner will absolutely fall off without fail, losing all of his corpus and forcing you to revive him, over and over again. Eventually, you'll reach Dr. Crackpot himself, and as the name suggests, he's not out there mentally. Remember the all-powerful Buoyant? Yes, that's him. It's very likely that prolonged exposure to dissonance completely shattered his sanity. This boss fight stands out because, for once, you don't get to land the finishing blow. Remember that strange noise Sanford heard while descending the elevator into the mining sector? That sound was Gestalt, who's now hunting you down. Your only way out is riding a minecart, dodging enemies and obstacles, while your AI partner either gets stuck on air or falls to his doom, again, offering little to no help. But as powerful as Gestalt is, he shares the intelligence of African dictators.
I don't want peace. I want problems, always.
Giving our protagonist just enough time to escape and lower the final water levels, opening the way to the Science Tower. Now all we have to do is fight our way through Nexus's defenses to reach the monolith, which will finally take us up to the Science Tower. Their first line of defense are butler bots. They look dangerous, but honestly, they're nowhere near as tough as Zeds or Abominations. Once you reach the lowest levels of the Science Tower, it gets rough. Zeds come chasing from below, and Nexus agents attack from above. If you're playing co-op, the smart move is for one player to cover the front while the other watches the back. The AI is so glitchy, it actually disappeared for half the stage in my playthrough, leaving me alone against swarms of undead. The only thing my AI partner did right was hacking to clear a path. Other than that, he was basically dead weight and deserved some serious blame. One cool detail I noticed, you can't take down robots with a broken melee weapon. Makes sense, hard to pierce steel with a damaged blade. After defeating all the enemies, we can take the elevator for a long, peaceful ride to the surface. Well, it's minus Project Nexus, so peaceful doesn't last long. Another boss battle is waiting for us. This time, he's fully armored in the front, so we can only attack from behind. Also, his jump attack is annoying. Shout out to the AI who actually helped me a lot in this fight. After beating the ghoul, another one appears, but this time in a humanoid form. After trading a few punches, he stops and starts talking. Surprisingly, his words actually matter, even coming from a clown. We learn that disabling Project Nexus will also destroy all of Nevada. Plus, Project Nexus was originally meant to be a recycling program, pulling dissonance from another place and using it to improve daily life. The stage ends with Demos and Sanford thinking about their next move. However, their deep contemplation is interrupted by one final flashback. Keeping with tradition, we are now stalking Christoph, this time after the fall of Nexus City, as he is invited by To Be Damned to discuss the potential destruction of Project Nexus. Before heading in, we see him instruct Hank to rescue two bodies, Demos and Sanford. This moment basically confirms that the browser game is canon to this one, acting as a prequel. Now, I'd love to summarize the meeting, but honestly, it's so important that I'm going to make you watch the whole thing. Yes, I'm wasting 2 minutes of your precious time with zero commentary, because it's just that crucial.
I need you to bust my guys out of containment first. Can I count on you to make that happen? It won't be a problem. Dr. Kristoff, come in.
What is he doing here?
Please, we're here for a joint purpose. There's no need to escalate this meeting towards violence.
If violence was not your intention, then why did you invite Hank Wimbledon here?
Because the mission at hand requires it. We're going to terminate Project Nexus, and we need your aid.
Project Nexus? Impossible. Project Nexus is long dead, and with the Keystone Fragment in my possession, it will never operate again.
I hate to ruin your good mood, Kristoff, but Project Nexus survived. We can't explain how, but they're still drawing living energy from the other place.
I already told you. That is not possible. Director Phobos was slain by my own hand. I prevented him from engaging Project Gestalt. Without the fragment, the project is finished.
The intel is solid. The Nexus Corps inadvertently heralding the madness into Nevada, whether they know it or not.
No. I do not care what you believe to be true. You will stay out of Nexus City. That place is forbidden to you.
Jebediah, if we do nothing, Nevada falls. You cannot possibly want that.
But I know what you want, Doc. You crave to advance the efficacy of your ghoulish experiments into death and rebirth. And with the unfinished remnants of Project Gestalt at your fingertips, that is a measure of power no one was meant to possess.
Ghoulish? You weren't complaining the last time I stitched you back together from the scattered remnants of your own corpse.
None of this matters. You will not be the ones to save Nevada from the perils that await it. Enter my city, and our next words will be at the end of a sword. And as
as for you, Hank, the conditions by which I would ever choose to work alongside you would be so dire that it would indicate a world no longer worth saving.
So, that's a no from Kristoff. Is this meeting going somewhere, or what?
Let's discuss objectives and parameters. This mission will require finesse.
Yes, finesse. And that rock launcher. I'm going to need that rock launcher.
Now, after all this time and all the corpus we've lost, it's finally time to enter the science tower.
I'm about to bomb this whole plane.
Naturally, Nexus Core is gonna throw everything they've got at you. But it's fine, because Hank is on the job. No, Christoph though, that genius decided to float straight to the top and left all the heavy lifting to you. The main objective here is to reach the divergence engine at the top of the tower. Unlike most stages, this one starts off relatively peaceful. Before we unleash chaos on everything that breathes or beeps, we first have to check in. Then we're sent toward the lounge, where an engineer immediately recognizes us and attacks us on sight. From there, the more you push, the harder they push back. Butler bots, golems, tower guards, they'll throw wave after wave at you until you drop. But here's the catch, you won. You've got boots on the ground, eyes on the target. Since the start of the game, you've always been outnumbered, but never outgunned. As the fight escalates, you'll run into these aggressive purple bots that charge straight at you and self-destruct. They're loaded with dissonance, and if you don't move fast when you see their angry face light up, you're Nachmun. But stay sharp and you'll be fine. The cloning program seems to be working overtime, because no matter how many enemies you slash and dash through, the reinforcements just keep coming. Along the way, you'll stumble into a locker room, where a few golems are mid-shower. Normally this wouldn't matter, but since they're completely unarmed and unarmored, it makes them an easy target. Speaking of golems, a few fights later you'll meet one that's wearing more body armor than a military convoy. The only way to beat him is to blow him up. He'll whip out a minigun and start spraying, but Hank's too fast for that. Dodge the bullets, bring him down, and with that the stage comes to an end. Now that you're all warmed up, it's time for the real fight. To progress, the four have to split into teams of two. Hank with Sanford and Demos with Christoph. Why they thought it was a good idea to separate the muscle from the brains, I have no idea. Hank's team is assigned to deactivate the defense shutters blocking access to the penthouse of the science tower. As the stage begins, you will spot an attendant quickly ducking behind a gate, to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. Fun fact, since MatPat retired, not many people know this, but if you keep ringing the bell on the front desk, an Easter egg triggers. A heavily armored and hostile golem shows up. Enjoy your reward. Of course, since Hank is unnatural at absolute chaos, the Nexus 4 had no choice but to call in backup from the agency against Hank J. Wimbledon. Like that's going to stop you. What I didn't mention earlier is that our protagonists got a bit of an upgrade. All four now have an extra corpus and some upgraded armor. That said, Hank has 4 corpus, while Sanford and Demos each get 5, which, frankly, makes the game borderline unplayable. Crinkles, please fix this.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
Soon, you'll get separated from your AI partner, which is honestly the best part of the entire level. Unfortunately, that joy is short-lived, when you're forced to switch to Sanford, who of course got taken out by 3 agents. Hank's agility really shines in this stage, especially when it comes to crawling through tight vents like it's second nature. After squeezing through, you'll reach a balcony, where you can catch a breath of that sweet decaying air. And then, a mag agent shows up, dead set on deleting Hank J. Wimbledon. Now, this isn't one of those rushed and inferior mags or golems. This one's fully operational. But here's the twist. It wasn't made by Nexus Core. It was built by the agency against Hank J. Wimbledon. Which raises a question. Are they cloning now? The answer? Absolutely. Why else would there be so many of them? If you've seen Magnus Combat, you already know the Auditor runs the agency. And since he's from the other place, it makes sense he'd be using dissonance to create super soldiers, who then immediately become corpses after Hank deals with them. Somewhere along the way you'll find a note about Project Gestalt. Apparently he was made using all the data from Project 1V02P, plus Hofnar's dissonance canisters. They shoved all of that into an unfinished mag, and Project Gestalt was born. Thankfully he's not your problem. Yet. Once you're back outside you'll need to call in a lift to keep going. Problem is, neither Hank nor Sanford can hack stuff, so you're stuck holding your position until the other team helps out. At first, Nexus Core won't attack you, but the agency definitely will. These guys will rack up more casualties than the Soviets in World War II. After mowing down around 60 grunts, you'll have to survive for another 3 minutes against a coordinated assault from Nexus Core, the agency, and Gestalt, who's now slowly climbing towards you. Also, apologies if my game's lagging. Apparently my RTX 3060 isn't strong enough to handle this magnet. But around 140 left on the timer, Gestalt finishes climbing. If you keep your distance, you should be fine. Just don't let your AI partner die. Because between 20 grunts, 3 mag agents and an immortal science experiment, things can spiral quickly. Once the timer runs out, the lift finally shows up. You can proceed, ride another elevator, scare 30 grown men, and finally pull a lever to disable the defense shutters, ending the stage.
I'm tired, boss.
Meanwhile, Demos and Christoph take on the bold task of disabling the tower's ascension locks, which should keep the top floor secure from any intrusions. As we move on to the next stage, we are met by a scientist and a Nexus agent standing in our way. From a nearby note, we find out that Nexus Core has tried to revive Project Nexus multiple times, unsuccessfully. Turns out, Christoph was kinda right. Project Nexus is mostly non-operational. Still, it's clear Nexus Core isn't giving up just yet. Even if the chances are low, they're still trying to bring it back. After commandeering a robot, Gestalt himself starts chasing us. I have no idea how this abomination managed to crawl out of the sewers, but he did, and now he's dramatically leaping out of windows trying to catch us. He misses though, and ends up crashing right into Hank and Sanford. This stage, by the way, is meant to take place at the same time as the one I mentioned earlier. Anyway, since we're getting close to the end of the game, I need to complain one last time about the AI teammate. Because of course, the guy decides to vanish for half the stage. Normally, not a huge deal, if I were playing as Hank, but I wasn't. I'm still waiting, impatiently, for someone to drop a Hank-only story mode mod. On the other side of the tower, things are going differently. Naturally, Hank finishes his objective way ahead of Demos and Christoph, who are, well, let's just say Demos can barely walk 3 feet without tripping. And Christoph's just standing there blocking everything like his block button stuck. Probably thanks to his Halo boost. Oh, and for some reason this game apparently did a collab with KSI.
I'm in the thick of it.
Yeah, he's one of the boss fights. After checking an absurd amount of prime, the guy ends up on life support. But don't think that makes the fight any easier. Thanks to all the prime in his system, his stomach now creates weird little mini creatures that attack on sight. Also, he has missiles, because of course he does. The only way to damage him is to go for his pride, which conveniently is located inside his stomach.
Holy man, just give it up. Like, your lyrics is god awful.
After roasting his music hard enough to trigger second-hand embarrassment, he finally gives in and literally explodes from the shame, which ends the stage. Now there's one final stage left to beat. One last push until Project Nexus is fully dismantled. This time all 4 of our protagonists are heading in together. The main objective is to reach the Divergence engine. This stage might be the most lore heavy one yet. To reach the Divergence engine you'll first have to pass through the museum, showcasing all the previous accomplishments of Project Nexus. Apparently, they were aiming to end world hunger using something called energy reclamation technology, with help from the mercs in the industrial sector. With the cloning program they could bring back fallen grunts by creating perfect copies, something confirmed in one of the notes found in the Boom Factory. And most notably, there's the Sleepwalker Dream Assimilation program, which was supposed to teach everyday people skills like playing the piano or just about anything you could want. Of course, while these reforms sound great on paper, they were twisted by Phobos for his own goals. Every one of these innovations was repurposed to expand his army and control over Nevada. And the programs themselves were far from perfect. Clones could wake up with broken minds, living in a constant state of anger and pain. And for the right price, you could upgrade a clone, add skills like hacking, explosives, vent crawling, and pretty much anything. Then out of nowhere, Lamenters start attacking. These twisted creatures might be cybernetically enhanced abominations, likely altered by dissonance as well. Despite everything, they might still be somewhat conscious. You can hear them screaming why, probably from the constant pain caused by their condition. After you fight through and take the elevator up, Christoph drops some truth. This museum was a propaganda machine. Phobos made some deals with shady merchants across Nevada, trading Nexus soldiers and training modules from the Sleepwalker and cloning programs in exchange for liquid reserves. The security here is intense. You'll be facing enemies infused with dissonance, including one that feels like a mini version of the ghoul boss from earlier, but faster and way more jumpy. These robots have the Muslim module activated. Then come the dissonant golems. They're actually easier to deal with than the usual golems. They teleport around a lot, but if you've got good reflexes you'll manage. The bigger problem are lasers. Easy to dodge, unless your AI teammates decide to run into them like they're magnetized.
You're not supposed to be here.
Oh, and if you're wondering about the whole shutting down Project Nexus My Doom Nevada thing, don't worry. Christoph said he's got it handled. Yes, we're letting the guy who helped break Nexus City be the one to fix it. What could go wrong? In this stage you also learn how to create mags, but honestly, the instructions feel like it's just there to mess with your head.
How did someone even come up with them words?
On top of that, you get some insight into the different generations of clones. Generation 04 is your standard grunt. Generation 03, which was supposed to be a butler model, ended up being the golems we've been fighting this whole time. Generation 05 are those weird butler bots that try to jumpscare me. But hey, you get your revenge in the next room by playing soccer with your heads. After a bit of leg-breaking action, we finally reach Phobos' office, where Christoph takes the Divergence engine for a spin. Literally. And since this is Madness Project Nexus, you know what time it is. Final boss fight. And who better for the job than Georgian Church? Gestalt. And this time there's no escape. No pressure, but if you don't beat him, he'll literally consume the other place and ascend into godhood. Unfortunately, traditional weapons are useless at first. You've gotta use the Divergence engine to supercharge him, and then you can start laying down fire. For a short window, obviously. Be ready to reconnect some cables too, because they'll randomly snap mid-fight. Oh, and he has tentacles now. Dodge them if you're playing as Sanford or Demos, cut them if you're Hank J. Wimbledon. Once 2 of his corpuses are destroyed, he starts blocking the cables with those same tentacles. You've got infinite guns here, so make it work. After the 3rd corpus gets destroyed, it seems like you finally finished the game. You've defeated Gestalt. Congratulations. Never mind, he just sprouted wings and started shooting lasers from his mouth. At least the soundtracks are better. Bad news, Gestalt is basically immortal. Good news, we can beat him by extracting the selves embedded in him. And what's in there? A few Nexus agents, some Zeds and are you serious? Director Phobos? Wonderful. He's outside and now he's a literal god being. Luckily, his corpus isn't armored, so this part of the fight comes down to raw skill. Good thing Hank has plenty. All jokes aside, this is arguably the best boss fight in the game. It's intense, chaotic, and everything you'd expect. Actually, scratch that. This fight is a nightmare. Every time you'll blink, the boss will either teleport, throw out these weird summons, and hurl spinning swords constantly. But beating him is incredibly satisfying. Right at the end, he tries to merge back with Gestalt, which is obviously a bad idea. So how do we stop him? We blow him up, and then beat him down while he's paralyzed. Turns out, Hank was right all along. Not only could he take Phobos down, he did. And with that, the stage ends, and the epilogue begins.
The director and his puppet are vanquished. They will burn this place never again. It is done. Does that mean we won? Are we finished? Utterly and completely. Now we may begin again. Project Nexus can be reborn into the salvation this world requires to survive. The first step that we...
Okay, that's taken care of. Let's destroy Project Nexus.
Whoa, Hank, what did you do?
He wasn't going to shut up, so he needed to go. What's the problem?
The problem? The problem is we need that guy!
No, we need to finish the mission.
Hank, have you not been listening? We've stopped the project. It's over. And Kristoff can save all of us without compromising the mission. Everyone wins.
Doesn't matter. Destroy Project Nexus. That's the mission. It always has been. Why are we still talking about this?
Fella, I don't care what you think the mission is. I'm not blowing up the world, and neither are you. Capiche?
Let's be clear here. Are you telling me we're going to have a problem?
We can't let you wipe out Nevada, Hank. Everyone can walk away, and we all still win, Hank. It doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah? Because between you and me, I was hoping it would come to this.
So, if you've made it this far, you're probably wondering what just happened. Honestly, I have no idea.
No.
This isn't a joke or a bit. I'm genuinely as confused as you are. This game raises a lot of questions, and you'd think the finale would give us some answers. But Mania's Project Nexus isn't just any game. All I can really say is, maybe someday Crinkles will bless us with some answers. For now, we're left with speculations. One big question on everyone's mind is whether this game is canon to the main series, which Crinkles has confirmed it is. But if that's true, where exactly does it fit in the timeline? Based on Hank's outfit, it seems like it happened somewhere between Madness Combat 7 and 9. But that gets complicated. At the end of Madness Combat 7, Hank dies. Then at the start of Madness Combat 9, he shows up as Mag Hank. So where does this fit in? And what happens now? Christoph's gone, Project Nexus is shut down, but what about the whole Nevada about to explode thing? And why did Hank turn on Sanford and Demos? Again, we're left with theories. But there is one final scene, right after the credits. In it, we see Christoph somehow survive both a point-blank rocket and what looks like an 800-foot fall. He's planning his revenge on Hank when the employers show up. This scene once again raises even more questions, and once again I don't have the answers. But look on the bright side, story mode is over. The video's not though, because now it's time to take on arena mode. Before we jump in, let me sum up the playground in one sentence. You can spawn and fight whoever you want, and you've got access to custom stages too. Arena mode doesn't just start, no. First you must christen your protagonist with a name, preferably something suitably tragic, ironic, or hopelessly optimistic, and then select an origin, which is code for what mental illness will your character have today. At the start you're given 5 origins to choose from. Each comes lovingly packaged with one skill they're marginally competent at, one they absolutely fumble, and some bizarre stat perk like won't get shot on sight during infiltration missions, until you inevitably blow someone's head off, because this trait is for people who don't play arena mode. Of course, this wouldn't be a proper mess without exceptions, such as Noob, who is so unremarkable he doesn't even get focus or weak skills. Perfect for masochists or people who like to suffer intentionally. Once you've made your choice, the game begins with you waking up on a bus. Why? Who knows? But in front of you sits 2B Doc. Naturally, your protagonist has amnesia, because heaven forbid we have a backstory that makes sense. Doc kindly informs you that your job is to find the Mandatus, something so mysterious it will not even be revealed at the end of Arena, and run the enmeshment program, which is supposed to decode it. Also, Doc bought a building just for you. Inside the building, your so-called HQ is exactly what you'd expect from abandoned real estate. Trash, decay, and squatters. the squatters being deeply committed to the time-honored tradition of attacking anyone that invades their personal space, immediately deciding you're a threat, or a meal, or both. Now remember, your protagonist is, canonically, a guy who came out of nowhere, with the combat prowess of a damp paper towel. So the first fight is less heroic struggle and more desperate flailing against a man in a trash coat. Eventually, you manage to take down the squatter. His name is revealed to be Bossman. Yes, that Bossman.
I just lost $300, dude.
The one who got fired from the power station in story mode. Now he's downgraded from disgruntled employee to full-blown hobo warlord.
I'm a male. I'm a man. I'm a he. I don't get into that mentally ill stuff. Okay.
But surprise, Bossman wasn't squatting alone. Turns out your new headquarters is a hotspot for individuals without a job. And the rest of his merry band of indoor campers will also need to be evicted. Once you've redecorated the place with your teeth, you can finally turn the power back on. Because nothing says home sweet home like functional electricity and the lingering smell of blood. On your way back down the entrance, you'll find Bossman, who, in a rare act of post-beating generosity, he shows you a Sleepwalker dream assimilation bed, manufactured by the ever-reputable corporate overlords at Nexus Corp. This marvel of tech will serve as your tutorial for arena mode, because nothing prepares you for hell like slipping into a simulation built by a company run by a fascist warlord. Since this is supposed to be a tutorial, the Sleepwalker bed program is easy to beat, even on Madness difficulty, which, as the name implies, will drain your sanity faster than the local succubus drains white fluid. Pro tip, do not play arena mode on Madness difficulty with 0 hirelings unless you're actively looking to break your last working keyboard, punch a monitor, or schedule an emergency appointment with your nearest mental health professional. After each successful stage, you gain experience based on your preferred method of extermination: fists, melee weapons, firearms, or throwing weapons. This XP lets you upgrade your character, whether it's learning how to dodge bullets or mastering the precise moment to pull the trigger in order to activate your gun's sweet spot. Investing in core upgrades aligned with your origin will reward you with Corpus, but if you're playing as noob, the game throws you a bone anyway and just gives you Corpus no matter which core upgrade you pick. After getting the hang of arena mode's mechanics and surviving the Sleepwalker training program, you unlock your first contract mission. Why? Because you're trying to raise a paramilitary organization, and, as it turns out, that costs money. Lucky for you, Bossman knows a guy, a pilot who's willing to fly you across Nevada. Unlucky for you, he's currently being held hostage by what appears to be a roving pack of street thugs. This stage gives us a peek at civilization in Nevada. There are no Zeds stumbling around, no starving bandits, and worst of all, people walking the streets going to jobs. This is a pretty strong clue that arena mode takes place before story mode, or at least before everything went sideways, thanks to a certain someone who I will not name, but show on screen. That said, Bossman is already fired here, and the Sleepwalker program exists, so it's probably wedged somewhere near the fall. The stage itself isn't too difficult, except for one section that will instantly obliterate you unless you've unlocked your tac bar. Oh, and if you've got the eyes of a hawk, you might spot a mysterious figure lurking in the background, who vanishes the moment you notice him. At the moment we have no idea who he is, but rest assured, if you don't see him again, he definitely sees you. Once you finished beating down the local riffraff and sending Sweet Tony back to Mafia overlords, you finally rescue the pilot, who, by the way, is canonically British, because of course he is. After heroically rescuing the pilot, better known as Chopper Dave, we unlock the shop. This is where you can finally customize your character, from stylish murder masks to tactical footwear. Naturally, it's also where you'll pick up your weapons. Admittedly, your options start out depressingly limited. But don't worry, with every completed stage, the quartermaster will stock more gear. And since Nevada is a state in the land of the free, it's only natural that he has an infinite stockpile of firearms. Now that Chopper Dave's been forcibly drafted into your crusade, you can travel across the great dusty wasteland that is Nevada. Completing stages earns you money. Along with your newfound mobility, you get access to the Nevada map, which reveals the state split into three creatively named regions: Nevada Central, Somewhere, and Nexus City. They are connected by railroads, boxed in by impassable terrain. Of course, Nevada is huge. To reach its farthest, most desolate corners, we'll need fuel. And by fuel, I mean oil. Thankfully, there's a conveniently placed pit stop where you can siphon gas illegally. Unfortunately, the place is swarming with anarchists. These self-proclaimed freedom fighters believe using oil to stimulate the economy is some sort of war crime. Their solution is to grab the nearest rock, stick, or angry tweet and destroy everything in sight in the name of liberty. Your job is to stop them. Ironically, these same bandits are the first enemies you encounter in story mode, meaning the last remnants of civilization in Nevada are, in fact, shirtless lunatics with improvised explosives. After surviving two increasingly desperate waves of these sandal-wearing revolutionaries, the stage ends. The oil is saved, the economy breathes another shallow, wheezing breath, and you move on. With the fuel finally secured, we can now start accepting missions, like surviving certain death on a rickety old engineering platform. This stage drops you into a Merc facility. How do we know it's Merc territory? Because they greet us with bullets. Lots of them. This time you're up against 3 waves instead of the usual 2. Don't panic, unless you brought the wrong gear, in which case do panic. Survival 3 and To Be Damned shows up congratulating you and letting you know it's time to move on to Phase 2. He provides you with another contract mission, which will require you to assault the Van Vice Syndicate. These guys are one of the biggest, meanest crime outfits in Nevada Central. If you're not ready, they'll turn you into pasta, so make sure to properly gear up. The reasoning here is simple, blunt force kind of simple. If we want to crack the Mandatus, we're gonna need the right tech. And guess who's sitting on that tech? The Van Vice Syndicate. So we kick in the front door, make some noise, and near the end of the stage, 3 of their chefs step up for a last stand. Think of them as mini-bosses. The emphasis on mini. Honestly, beating them is less stressful than surviving the journey to them. Once you pulp these guys into the floor, congratulations, you now have access to their precious hardware. But one of the chefs you just folded suddenly wakes up, and instead of going for round 2, he decides betrayal is the flavor of the day. He wants in on your crew. Apparently, getting smacked around knocked some sense into him. He offers black market supplies, in exchange for sanctuary. And just like that, you've made a new business partner, and a very, very pissed off enemy. After the stage ends, we arrive back at HQ. Doc's busy prepping the enmeshment drive. I will be nice enough to show you the entire conversation, because there's no way I'm making a summary of this. And with that headache out of the way, you now unlock 3 new missions: Fast Track, Slaughter Time, and The Haunting of Nevada House. As awesome as Chopper Dave is, he's got one major flaw. He drinks fuel on a larger quantity than my father drinks alcohol. And guess what? Fuel's still a problem. So we're gonna have to improvise. Lucky for us, our bloodhounds picked up a moving train nearby, which is perfect for us. The train is fast, sturdy, and crawling with Agency Against Hank J. Wimbledon goons, which, honestly, is exactly what we expected. What's not expected, though, is the sky. It's red. Bright, ominous, end of days red. That wasn't a thing before. This sudden blood-colored skyline is our clue that this stage takes place after the improbability drive got tampered with, which, mind you, happened after the fall of Nexus City. Thing is, after this level, the sky goes back to normal, like nothing ever happened, until later stages in the game. So, either there's some deep lore explanation I missed, or Crinkles might not be the most consistent storyteller on Earth. Anyway, back to business. Make your way through the train, clearing out Agency Against Hank J. Wimbledon agents in each car. Once you've cleaned house and every last meat puppet is dealt with, Fast Track is officially complete. Next on the list is an official invitation to Slaughter Time. That's right, a live game show, where your job is to survive an unending parade of clones, all while a bloodthirsty audience cheers from the safety of their couches.
Don't take my job. You did, King. I made that mess. Yes, King.
You might be asking, how does a game show like this even get greenlit? One that glorifies mass violence and single-handedly stalks morgues across Nevada? No idea. But hey, don't stress too hard about morality. Every casualty, aside from your charming self, is a mindless clone. You were born in that, raised in a lab, and their only purpose is to get exterminated for viewer ratings. It's fine. Probably. The whole thing's run by a guy named Guile. He's a golem. That's not a nickname, he's literally a golem model. Now, full disclosure, I hate this stage. Not because it's hard, no, but because it's annoying. You've got these color-coded grunts in red and green suits who fire slow-moving light balls at you. 1 or 2? Easy. 4 or more? Suddenly you're playing Undertale with none of the charm and all of the frustration. Obviously, your character who can dodge bullets apparently forgot how to move when it comes to glowing energy orbs. Your only real chance here is to sidestep out of the way. However, the red guys shoot orbs that follow you, which obviously makes things a little complicated. Still, after you've atomized a few hundred clones on live TV and earned yourself a shiny new reputation as Nevada's most fashionable mass murderer, you're finally clear to move on to the next nightmare. And no, that wasn't a joke. This next stage is a nightmare, literally and figuratively. Welcome to the Haunting of Nevada House, where the enemies are ghosts, cultists, and things that probably shouldn't exist in this plane of reality. You're still hunting for the Mandatus, but surprise, some deranged cultists have decided to meddle with dark forces and make your life a living hell with their occult interference. As if things weren't already complicated enough, the gameplay here is similar to Pit Stop. Your main job is to defend, except this time you're holed up in a haunted house, and instead of fuel lines, you're babysitting fragile windows. Sounds fun, right? Wrong, especially if you're not playing with hirelings. Playing solo turns this into a real test of patience, and your willingness to scream at the screen. Let a single window fall, and cultists will pour in to start a ritual. What's the ritual for? Oh, nothing major, just summoning eldritch monsters from the abyss. However, the ritual backfires. Instead of unleashing unspeakable horrors, the cultists get turned into flame golems. Thankfully, this stage isn't too hard. The enemies are more creepy than deadly, and the lack of guns on their end makes a huge difference. Punching a ghost in the face is weirdly satisfying, and watching cultists turn themselves into fire elementals is just the cherry on top. defend the house, wreck the ritual, toast some cultists, and move one step closer to unlocking the Mandatus. Speaking of, Doc finally calls in with some intel on the Mandatus' location. Good news, right? Not really, because the only people who know where it is are the Vice Syndicate. You know, the same group you previously reduced to red paste. Shockingly, they're not too eager for a reunion.
For all my baby girls, I see your comments, ladies, and they make me smile. I'm lurking and I'm stalking when you least expect.
But they're still open to negotiations. And the meeting is going down at Club Advent. Fun detail, Lochner and Cheshire, the guys who actually composed the soundtrack for the game, are the club's DJs. Problem is, the Vice want nothing to do with you. So, to be damned, he ends up going solo to the table, while you hang around like a bouncer with anger issues. While he's in the back room doing diplomacy, Crackpot from Story Mode is sitting at a table. Apparently, he's here to strike a deal with the Vice for some fancy tech he wants to bring back to Nexus City. Something confirmed by Christoph in Story Mode. Crackpot's even willing to trade with you, which sounds nice until things go sideways. You're suddenly interrupted by some familiar faces. The guys you beat senseless in the pilot episode. Only now they're back, and they've reinvented themselves as vampire hunters. Their motto being, anyone who looks dangerous is definitely a vampire. Naturally, they attack you on sight. And just when you think it's over, you step outside the club and you get ambushed by actual vampires. Turns out the hunters weren't totally wrong, just extremely bad at picking targets. The vampires aren't too tough. Just don't let them claw you. At one point you'll have to leap over a rail to avoid certain death, which is totally optional.
But when does this game get fucking good?
After all that chaos, To Be Damned finally pulls up on the ride, and literally runs over some stragglers, driving with all the grace of someone texting and steering with their knees. But hey, it gets you home. Before you head back into HQ, you'll spot Crackpot hanging out inside the fence. From now on, he's your second quartermaster. But this one only deals in boon tokens. You earn those by completing stages or going robot hunting in endless mode. What's he sell? Colors, unique weapons like the binary sword and tricky stop sign, and augments, which we don't use, because we're not cowards. After wrapping that contract mission, you unlock your personal launch. Here you can retexture your character. Want a robotic arm? Done. Want to become a Z? Absolutely. It's your launch, be weird with it. Now you're standing at the edge of the final stretch. Only 3 stages left in arena mode. Up first is Murder Room. Easily the most straightforward of the bunch. Simple name, simple premise. Go in, exterminate everything, and try not to be exterminated yourself. Murder Room is the first mission set in Nexus City. And, just like Slaughter Time, we're only here for someone else's entertainment. Can't really complain though. They do pay well. This stage isn't difficult, just irritating. The floor is littered with grates that drop you into a pit if you linger too long. You've got orderlies who seem to think hugging means stunlocking you into a seizure. Others go full chemical warfare and start dosing you mid-fight.
My eye was right here, and my other eye still right here. Explain, bro. I got to go look for this, bro. What the did you sell me, bro? Look at me, bro. I'm hideous.
Fortunately, the same rules apply to enemies. The grades don't discriminate. So if you're clever, or just petty, you can bait the boss or a mob of grunts into a one-way trip to the void. Overall, annoying map. Looks like fun, plays like punishment. Next on the list is... Hard Shell is a mission so sadistic it nearly made me uninstall the game out of self-respect. Multiple times. You see, Doc needs some rare resources. Where are they? At the Nevadian Mall. Naturally, this isn't your average shopping trip. No, you get a complimentary full-body cavity search from Operational Detachment Nevada 51. These boys don't mess around. They're armored, armed to the teeth, and trained to kill anything that breathes or dares to think about breathing. Now, you can bring hirelings. You should bring hirelings. In fact, the devs got so tired of watching players get turned into red mist that they threw in an NPC to warn you. But I'm a lone wolf. And my keyboard is now missing its left control key. Anyway, the objective is simple. Defend some unholy contraption while getting assaulted from 3 directions simultaneously by what I can only assume are rejected CIA operatives. It's like tower defense, except you're the tower, and the tower is on fire, and about to explode. Good luck, you'll need it, along with therapy. If you thought the worst was behind you, congrats, you're clinically delusional. Because the next and final stage somehow manages to be even worse. This time, we're infiltrating a Nexus core facility. Not the science tower, mind you. No, we're hitting up some crusty Blackwater outpost that probably isn't even OSHA compliant. But don't let the word outpost fool you. The second you set foot on their glorified helicopter landing slot, you'll be swarmed like a chicken nugget in a KFC filled with colored folk. Blink and you're done. Now you might be wondering, why are we doing this? Is it for a critical component to decrypt the Mandatus? Perhaps to save humanity? No, it's because we're petty. That's it. We just want to flex on Nexus core. Imagine a suicide mission launched poorly for the sake of bragging rights. Also, the sky is red again. Please don't ask me why. Unlike Hard Cell, this hellscape isn't about holding the line. It's a full-on gauntlet. You'll be marching through 5 separate sectors, each more cursed and hostile than the last. And let me be clear, strength won't save you here, only sheer stubborn willpower. That and a complete disregard for your own well-being. If you're going in solo, death isn't just likely, it's inevitable. But hey, it's the last stage in arena mode. Maybe after beating it, you will finally be free. Defeating all the previous stages has unlocked your final contract mission. Once again, it's courtesy of To Be Damned. The Van Vice have somehow found the location of the Mandatus, the thing we've been chasing since the beginning of Arena. All that's left now is to walk into the jaws of madness and yank it out. Before heading into the target zone, you might notice some familiar graffiti, scribblings you've seen before in story mode. Once inside, you finally meet the mysterious figure who's been stalking us the entire playthrough. His name is the Gambler. Fitting, considering this is Nevada.
Last night's stream I placed $500,000 of bets.
He speaks in riddles, but he's kind enough to lead you to the Mandatus, or as he calls it, to hold the hand of the machine. Keep this locked gate in mind. The Gambler tells you the Mandatus is located in nowhere, and when you ask where nowhere is, he responds with, it's nowhere. He also seems weirdly surprised this conversation hasn't happened before. According to him, you'll meet again, and again. We also get lore dumped about the Maker, the supposed ultimate creator of Nevada. Then the Gambler escorts you into a red barren wasteland, littered with robotic corpses. Suddenly, he turns into a robot and immediately tries to kill you. Oh, and these bots? They don't stagger. You hit them, they hit you harder. Survive that nonsense and you're back with the Gambler. Now acting like nothing happened. You're told to head upstairs, only to immediately fall through the floor and catch a glimpse of the machine. From here it's Red Wasteland after Red Wasteland. The robots keep coming. The machine clearly wants you dead. Suddenly, you're teleported into a pitch black room with just you and the Gambler. He claims the Mandatus isn't an object, it's a choice. A moment of existential assimilation. Translation, if you accept it, you cease to exist. Our protagonist, not exactly thrilled about the idea of spiritual suicide, tries to back out. But the Gambler insists. Nevada will fall unless you make the sacrifice. Why you? because you're one of the first to ever walk Nevada. Then the machine attacks. A boss fight ensues. It's hard, sure, but still not as soul-crushing as Hard Shell is. Nothing is.
Arena victory.
Defeated and a door opens, leading straight into the nowhere. This is it, the final choice. Surrender yourself or let Nevada burn. And if you try to delay it, sorry, the game waits politely. But progress is locked. You have no choice but to sacrifice yourself. And when you do, you pass out. Like story mode, arena mode's ending doesn't so much answer questions as it throws new ones into your lap. What actually happened? What's to be damned really up to? How does arena mode even connect to story mode? And who exactly is the gambler? At this point, the best we've got are to be damned cryptic diary entries. In one note, he talks about the employers, which he sees as fallen angels that descend on Nevada whenever the machine starts coughing up blood. If that's true, then their sudden cameo at the end of story mode isn't just ominous, it's a sign that something is wrong. But here's the twist. The Auditor, long-time antagonist, appears in Madness Combat, supposedly just there to delete Hank J. Wimbledon from existence. So which is it? Divine intervention or personal interest? Another note from To Be Damned mentions a leader ruling over Nexus City, which confirms Arena Mode is a prequel, because Phobos is still breeding. Then there's the final note. It talks about you, the player, the protagonist, the first to roam Nevada. Apparently, To Be Damned's been watching. He knows more than he's letting on. But he's not taking interviews. Now, you might be thinking, Arena Mode's done. Time to resume my gooning session in Zenless Zone Zero. However, there's one more thing. If you interact with a PC, you can imprint your character. This allows you to replay all of Arena Mode with a different origin and a +1 boost to all your stats. Except, it's not a clean rerun. Right from the start, your protagonist has a significant talk with Doc. The changes from here are subtle, mostly being in dialogue. But the biggest shift comes at the end, in the final contract. Obviously, to unlock the contract, you're gonna have to replay through all of Arena, again. As before, you'll need to survive 3 waves of increasingly agitated robots. The difference this time is that the gate's unlocked. No more pacing in circles, just straight into the fire. Survive, and you'll finally get your audience with the Maker. After the chat, you'll face the machine again. Beat it, and you'll be pulled back into the nowhere, same as last time. Expect to pass out and wake up on Doc's lab, groggy, disoriented, and conveniently ready to imprint and run Arena all over again. But we are not done. See that origin that requires 3 imprints to unlock? That's the Magitor. He's not optional. He's critical, plot essential, your key to whatever passes for truth around here. Problem is, you've only got 2 imprints, which means Arena, again, and once more after that as the Magitor. Once you unlock the Magitor, things get weird. Immediately. For starters, the intro credits are different. A few steps later, you'll see the gambler casually face through a wall like that's normal behavior. Follow him, and you're teleported into a dimension that reminds me of geometry class. Don't bother listening to the gambler's dialogue, it's irrelevant noise. What is relevant is that he sells wands and armor, gear that's unique to your origin. The Magitor is physically pathetic, laughably so. Some enemies can literally one-shot your corpus. You might be tempted to use heavy armor, which you can, if you enjoy moving at glacial speed while getting vaporized. To compensate, the devs gave us access to magic, which is totally not broken. With the right wand and a few upgrades, you can solo every stage on the hardest difficulty with minimal effort. As long as you dodge. One scrape, one lazy flick from a grunt, and you're a vapor. But hey, get a wand that homes in, one-shots, and has infinite ammo, and suddenly you're the final boss. The upgrade system is absurd. You can stack enchantments, chain effects, and basically turn into a magical war crime. So go nuts. In this same weird geometry dimension, you can also call the Maker.
It's been 5 years. You still owe me $16.
Who will spout yet more cryptic nonsense that you are fully justified in ignoring. As usual, the important changes happen in the 4th contract mission. At first glance, it looks like business as usual. But there's a twist. The robots have gone woke. They come in a variety of colors now. And like you, they now have access to magic. So you're no longer special. No Maker encounter afterward, and the machine fight is more or less the same. Except now the bots are flinging spells. Once you win, you're expected to walk into the nowhere. Except this time you will be ambushed. The machine's bots will swarm you, which has literally never happened before. Survive that, sacrifice yourself, and something very strange happens next. Turns out TBDM knew everything from the start. About the loop, about us, about the fact that we were never meant to escape. He saw the endless recursion and said, run it again. Whether it was duty, desperation, or just sheer apathy. But something's changed. The loop is broken. How do we know? Because Nevada has mostly fallen. On story mode the signs are everywhere. Collapsed factions, dead zones, silence where there used to be conflict. We don't know how it happened. We don't know when. And if the devs have their way, we won't know for a very long time. Still, to scratch your lore itch, yes, the mystery man from the intro of story mode is the maker. That means even after the fall, he still got at least an observer status. That's it, you've cleared both arena and story mode. You've seen the top of the tower, and you're still asking what it all means. If you want more, but can't stomach another rerun of arena, you've got the workshop. Custom maps are available to play. Nevada may be crumbling, but the community is still building. This game is one of the best I've ever played. And I'm still here, breath held, waiting for the next piece of the puzzle to fall into place. Maybe next update, maybe next decade, maybe never. Until then, tune in next time when we'll be debating medieval geopolitics.